Okay, I guess we're into part two. I didn't think I'd go to part two on this one, but well, um, I'll get on to why this is a two-parter in a second. So yeah, so great build up and great payoff, and you get the final confrontation with the all the characters, and then it goes on, and you get it, everything's taken to its logical conclusion in this. There's an afterlife, there's a ghost, so you see heaven. Michael J. Fox's wife is dead, so you get a resolution to that, and then there is a happy ending because it is a goofy film meant for teenagers. At the end of the day, it's a feel-good '90s movie, or at least Peter Jackson's version of a feel-good '90s movie. So yeah, I mean that's essentially the review of the film. I Like I say, it's a film I very much enjoy. I think it's, although it's Jackson's more commercial, lightweight effort. It hasn't got the I guess the edge or the anarchy of his earlier works. One of the reasons it it doesn't quite have the edge of his earlier films for me is his move from practical effects to CGI in this. I mean, obviously, given the subject matter of ghosts and the ghosts having to be transparent, obviously this was going to be a CGI fest. Um, Unfortunately, I do have to say, and it's surprising to say this, considering, because this is Weta, who did Lord of the Rings and Jackson's stuff, and other great stuff. They did they are now, I think, the leading special effects company when it comes to at least CGI characters on film. They've done the recent Planet of the Apes movies, District 9, Tintin. So it surprises me because this is really their starting point, and the CGI in this is largely awful. I do have to say it's. I mean, it's 90s CGI has dated, sure, but it doesn't look great. Some bits come off better than others, and you can kind of see that if I think if Jackson had managed to engage his imagination fully, if he wasn't sort of hampered by what was slightly primitive technology at the time, I mean, this film would look a lot better if they did it now. Um, I think it would have really engaged a lot better with the audience. As it happens, you kind of get the sense that the technology wasn't quite there at the time to keep up with his imagination. But it was. But I've got to commend them for the handmade quality of this film, because it was. I mean, it was. It would have been very easy for them to shot the film and then the studio to take it away from them and hand it over to ILM. And the fact that they stuck to their guns and said, "No, no, we can produce this all in house," and did something that it isn't. I mean, I say it's awful. It's not sort of gobsmackingly awful. It's just not great. I don't know if a big studio or ILM would have done much better. It might have looked a bit more sophisticated in parts, but. But what's commendable is that they stuck to the guns and they said, no, we want to found ourselves here in New Zealand as a special effects house to rival that of any that's in Hollywood. And to the credit, they they did with this film, and then they came into their own in Lord of the Rings, really. I'd say in the Two Towers, because I still remember watching the Fellowship of the First Ring, the Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, and thinking some of the effects work in that did look a bit ropey. Just here and there, there was a lot of impressive stuff, especially with they invented this program called Massive, I think, which meant that they could have battle scenes rendered very easily because they have lots of different characters, but they all had their own brain, so they weren't all marching in the same direction. And I remember those are the bits that really paid off for me in Lord of the Rings. With the first film, the bit with the moth and going down into the mines where all the orcs have sort of ransacking the wizard's home. I forget the name of the place. But for every shot like that, you get shots of Christopher Lee coming right down the stairs, and he's badly blue screened against a miniature model. Things like that. But I mean, definitely. I mean, now I think they are definitely in an effects workhouse to rival that of ILM. So maybe they just needed to find their feet, but I think it's absolutely incredible that I mean, if you show me this now and tell me that these the guys that did the effects work for this were going to be the industry leaders one day, I find it hard to believe. Anyway, sorry, yeah. I rambled on enough about the film. I just want to talk briefly. I've made the film I'm reviewing in a funny sort of way. It's kind of a half remembered film because this DVD, although very comprehensive, this is the director's cut of the film, which is 2 hours long. The theatrical cut is 1 hour 45 minutes, and disappointingly, it's not on here. I kind of wish it was. I kind of wish I could compare the two. Although in a funny sort of way you can, because, well, for two reasons. One, if you watch the commentary, like Jackson will point out which bits words in the theatrical cut, so you can kind of sort of do a little mind edit when you watch the film. And but other than that, like I say, I don't think I've seen the theatrical cut since I was 17. But I think like with The Abyss, I think it worked a lot better. I think the stuff that was added in was unnecessary and feels like it was removed just because it was not as good as the bits that were left in. You can find it is definitely one of those director's cuts where you can feel the dip in quality in the stuff that he puts back in, and but I'm not doing what I did with The Abyss, where I'm reviewing the theatrical cut and the director's cut. I'm because like I say, I haven't seen the theatrical cut in 20 years. Maybe I'll see if I can find some the theatrical cut just to compare the two. I imagine if it's out there, it's probably very cheap to get on DVD. But I mean, grievances aside about the cut of the film that's on here, and this is an amazing DVD set. I didn't realise, because I have watched this before, the film on disc one of here, and I was surprised because I when I got to the end and I'd watched the commentary, I thought, oh, I'll put on the second disc. There'll probably just be like a half hour, 45-minute making of on here. But actually, on the end of the commentary, and I really thought this was a joke when I heard it, Jackson says, starts talking about the reason he made the making of 4.5 hours long. And I was like, is he kidding? A 4.5 hour making of documentary for a 2 hour movie? No, it is 4.5 hours long, and apparently, when he was when he was first trying to get King Kong off the ground prior to Lord of the Rings. When all that fell through, because the studio got cold feet because he was because Godzilla was coming out and Mighty Joe Young, and they were worried that the projects were going to clash at a different time. Now it would be, Godzilla and Mighty Joe Young is coming out, shared universe, of course. But apparently he found himself with lots of time on his hands, so he wound up just ploughing all his energy into making the most comprehensive making of the Frighteners, which was put on the laser discs. So it was all done. This is you say this is a Hollywood movie. This is a true independent movie. Everything on here is done in house. The effects work and the special features. They filmed them all themselves, and great big long interview with Jackson on every single aspect of the making of the film, from the development, casting, filming, editing, scoring. One of the things I never mentioned in these reviews is the scores. It's Danny Elfman. It's a very Danny Elfman-esque score for this. One of the reasons is I never really notice scores, funnily enough, when I watch them. And I think I put that down to that's like a real credit to the score writers. I think if they've done the job properly, I shouldn't notice the score. I think that what a score should do is fool you into thinking that the music you're hearing is actually your emotional response to what you're seeing on screen, which is why I never really mention scores a lot, because a successful score should almost go unnoticed, apart from like the main themes. When it's a character's main theme, for example, that's I think when a score master is allowed to show off. I say Danny Elfman's probably one. I've never really been a big fan of his. I find his scoring a little over the top, and I think funny enough, like you hire Danny Elfman for this kind of movie, but I think you only hire him for this kind of movie. If your film's not a light-hearted horror comedy, I think he's a little out of his depth, but controversial. So yeah, it's a great disc set. This, and really, you'd ask, well, why a 4.5 hour documentary on the making of a film that flopped at the box office? And I think it was really an experiment. I think because this very much runs the same format of no stone unturned documentary, behind the scenes DVD extra that they later utilised in the Lord of the Rings special editions. There you go. 2 whole discs on the making of those films. They're easily 4.5 hours a piece for each one of those films. So I guess they were just really experimenting and seeing what they could get away with in terms of DVD extras. Anyway, God, I've really gone to town on this one. I really didn't think it would be this long. So there you go. Yeah, and that's the Frighteners. A film. It has its faults, but but it's a Jackson film, you know, and it's Jackson, it's young Jackson still, really punching the screen with his energy and his ideas and his creativity, and you know, and everything but the kitchen sink into the mix. And obviously, you know, it's not completely successful. There are moments that there are quite a few moments that you think, oh, yeah, what were you thinking there? But for every moment like that, there's also there's, you know, 10 great moments, and expertly structured as well. You know, for a film that seems like chaos, it's actually exquisitely structured, like a lot of his films. You know, shame about the director's cut, because I think. If my memory serves, it does serve. It does work a lot better in the 1 hour 45 minute version. So get this for the commentary and the special features, but get the theatrical cut, because I think that's the definitive version of the film. Just before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you to whoever subscribed to my channel, my first subscriber. Now, if you're watching this, subscriber, feel free to comment and get in touch. I I said I'd do this for the first person who would subscribe to the channel, and I really thought, you know, it would be my dad or someone who did this. But I always said, the first person who subscribes to the channel, I'll give you a review, you know. If you want, you know, it's entirely up to you. You can comment in the comment section below if you see this, and yeah, if you want, you know, you can name anything. I don't care what it is, you know, any genre, any medium. Just name anything you want, and I'll try and do a review of it as quickly as I can, if I can get a hand on a copy. Obviously, if it's something completely obscure that I have trouble getting a hold of, I'll let you know. But that's an offer I'm holding to you, open to you. It's there if you want it. Whatever you want reviewing, I'll do it. Absolutely fine, and thank you for subscribing and liking the Meet the Feebles reviews. It's great to finally have some commendation. It's finally great to be broadcasting to someone, not just sitting in my room feeling like I'm talking to myself and slowly going mad. So that's great. Anyway, so I rambled on far too long. So until next time, folks, this is me, Big Buddha, signing off, and I will see you all out there in YouTube land.